2 former Meta employees.
Both laid off
I went from recruiting top engineers at Meta
to building something that actually feels like me.
No safety net, no title, just figuring it out.
And we're done pretending it was easy.
We're Stripped Naked, the podcast for creators, professionals, and entrepreneurs
who are done with the highlight reel.
Raw,
real,
rebuilding.
Hello, everybody. I am Marissa, one of your co-hosts in Stripped Naked. And today I have the pleasure of reintroducing my co-host, June, and we'll be doing a full deep dive because you do already know who she is, but do you really know who she is? So if anything, everybody, can you please welcome June into the chat?
Hello. Thank you for the intro.
You know, it's like I could have said all these things, but I'm like, where's June? Where's my sidekick? I felt kind of like naked out here.
Did you feel stripped? Did you feel stripped?
I was like, where's my sidekick?
Well, I'm so excited that the table has turned on me.
Mm-hmm. And I did it specifically. So when I pitched it to you, there's so many things that are going on this month. If you see like the title of our podcast, we're talking about culture, mental health, and your real story. And because you are Filipino American and it is Filipino American month, I was like, why not? It's like with the heritage. And so I have to dive in to knowing who June is overall. So let's kick into it because I do have some spicy questions to ask you. From there. So obviously people know who you are. They know your face, they know your work, but do they really know who you are? Because I'm still getting to know you along like that. So let's start. Like, who are you outside of any of your titles? And I'm talking about like career coach, I'm talking UGC creator, I'm talking like recruiter. Like, who are you overall?
Oh my goodness. I feel like I wear so many titles outside of my professional titles, but I am a millennial mom of a family of four, including my fur baby. So I have 2 kids, been married for over 11 years. I'm a first-gen Filipino American. I'm really proud of that. My parents immigrated here in the 70s. I'm also a step instructor. I am super passionate, loud, have high energy. I'm creative. I just feel like I'm just a multi-potentialite person where I just have so many different hobbies. And what I love about this platform, I'm able to bring my personality into my work, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. I feel like I'm a creator. I'm a community builder. I love bringing people together. I'm a storyteller. I love sharing stories. I love bringing, I love shining light on people as far as bringing their inner confidence because I see it. Sometimes it's really hard for us to look ourselves in the mirror and identify what our like superpowers are and our strengths.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, it's hard for me, but like for me, I find it so joyful and purposeful to do that for my clients, to do that for my community. So yeah, I probably say in a nutshell, I'm just in essence, I'm a community builder at heart and storyteller.
I could see that. I could see that from the little short time that I've known you. So obviously I'm still learning about who you are and the things that that you love and you do. Because when I found out you were a step instructor, I was like, wait, you do that too? Video, right? So tell me something about your background and your upbringing that most people would never guess about you.
Oh, that's so interesting. That's a really good question. I think for people, I feel like I give out this persona where I'm just a very social person, right? I would say I'm an extrovert, right? But I didn't grow up being like that. I grew up very shy, timid. I didn't speak up. I didn't really find my voice. I was very shy, insecure. This was throughout high school, like up until elementary to middle to high school. And I remember my mom telling me that for like in my early adolescence, she said that I didn't really talk. I was just very muted. And then they thought that I had some kind of speech problem, but I just didn't know how to, I don't know, articulate my feelings. And I feel like I kind of, growing up in as a first gen Filipino American, I feel like I didn't really have that role model for me,
Okay.
and I didn't really find my confidence to like speak up and raise my hand until high school. That's when I found drama. So I became a drama kid, and I feel like I was never really confident like using my words and articulating my ideas. It was only when I was on stage performing a monologue, performing a play, where I felt very confident.
Okay. And why is that?
Ooh.
I know it wasn't my list, but with our name, why is that?
Oh my goodness. I don't know. I feel like maybe because I felt like I didn't have enough to offer. I found myself being very insecure growing up, in high school. And
So let me
uh,
ask you, let
ugh,
me put it you. No. Why was it that you felt so secure and confident on the stage
because it
versus
wasn't
off?
my own, because I went into character. I wasn't being me.
Yeah.
Ah,
The
I
different
wasn't
mask
like
that we put
being
on.
me. I was being somebody else. It was, yeah. Wow, you were
Okay.
going deep today, Marissa.
Are going deep today. So now because I know we've been mentioning about it, it's like I want to go into your roots, your Filipino roots, essentially. So obviously, like you're very proud on that and everything. Like the minute I knew, like I met you, I saw all of this. So you are first generation Filipino American, and I want to understand what it actually meant growing up like that, like not the surface version, like the real version, and what was the expectation, what was the pressure of all the things, because people hear your first generation and but they don't understand the dynamic inside of a home and growing up with that. So can you elaborate a little bit more on that?
Ooh, yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, we are definitely kind of ripping down your nails, getting stripped. Um, I mean, I feel like, as a first gen, I feel like, compared to my parents, like growing up in the Philippines is a lot different here, right?
Mm-hmm.
They grew up to be humble, be modest, just work heads down, don't ask for too much, right? And my parents also grew up in a very strict household, right?
Mm-hmm.
So growing up as a first gen, I had to kind of find my way of how to be a good daughter, how to get good grades, how to put my heads down, how to show up at school every day, how to make sure that my parents know that I'm like working really hard. And I felt like I was limited in my upbringing because my parents are very strict. Like I wasn't allowed to do anything really, like hang out with friends and all that. And that's where I felt like when I learned about drama, I kind of felt like that was like my outlet for me. But no, I feel like, you know, it was interesting. And then also I feel like I learned a lot from my parents because they had to, they immigrated here. I learned from them like what hard work ethic looked like, right? And what I also love about my parents growing up, even though they're very strict, they also showed me the importance of building community, helping others, even if it's like providing a meal, right? Like my mom was just huge on hospitality. And, my parents, we came from a very humble means of life, meaning we didn't really have, like, I didn't have all like the fancy like shoes and designer clothes, right? But
Mm-hmm.
for me, what my parents instilled in me is like, even though we don't have that much, we still find ways to give back to our community, right? And that's how I feel like, when I've had the pleasure to go back to the Philippines a few times in my life, and I feel like that's the sentiment that you feel every time you go back is, the Philippines is, it's a third world country. There's a lot of poverty there, right? And I feel like the community there is just, they don't have that much, but they just they just live life to the fullest, you know, and I feel like they live very minimal lives, right? And that's how my parents grew up. That's how I was raised. And I'm gonna kind of connecting that to today, where I feel like because of my upbringing, because my parents worked so hard, and they kind of showed me that even though, and my mom's been laid off multiple times in her career, but she's always found ways to make money and hustle. Whether it was like selling Avon, caregiving, doing all these side jobs, right? And I kind of like I feel that instilled in me as far as what I've learned from them, what hard work looks like and what
Mhm.
success looks like on your own terms, because we kind of have that survivor mentality as an immigrant, right? So does that answer your question? That was kind of long-winded.
No, it does, because it gives you a little glimpse into like all the mindset shifts, all the things that you have to do to like kind of like feel accepted as a first gen. And then you're not only like trying to figure it out for yourself, but you're also trying to incorporate like your parents' background and how that shapes you as a person, and meeting their wants and needs, but also meeting yours at the same time. Because when you're a kid, you always want to make sure your parents are happy. So it's very insightful to see how you like from your POV
Yes.
overall on
Hmm.
that. Which leads me to the next question that I had. It was like it's like you're like kind of like feeding into it. So I love it. It's so mental health, it's also mental health awareness month on top of everything. It's like it's not really spoken much. And it's always it's like it's not spoken openly within the Filipino like culture overall, and there's a lot of stigma around that. So what was your experience, and what did it look like in your household overall? No
Ooh,
pressure.
I just get a sip of water there. Um, hmm. I'm going to be open and transparent. I mean, this is where we're getting stripped and kind of like sharing our raw stories about our life and, childhood. I think mental health is very important. I mean, I have people in my family that struggled from mental health issues and disorders. So
Mhm.
I knew how important it was to have these practices, right? And for me, but I feel like there is a big stigma. We don't talk about it, right?
Mhm.
We don't talk about what's going on home, right? It's a
Mhm.
secret. Like you don't want to. There's this expectation that even if at home there's some issues going at home, when you're going to family parties and events, you just put a mask on, right?
Mhm.
To kind of mask those feelings. So I learned how to mask a lot growing up because my mom always told me, like, you just gotta show face, we just have to kind of put a face on. And for me, as a first gen and me kind of being a parent myself, I've learned how my parents raised me and how it was a huge stigma growing up. And for me, it's I still instill the values that they've showed me, but in my own way. Like for me, I'm very much different with my family, with my children.
Okay.
I want to have open discussions about mental health. Like, how are you feeling? I mean, for me, and I've shared this openly on LinkedIn, that, I've experienced multiple times in my life, chapters of my life where I've suffered from depression and anxiety. And for me, that's why I show up the way I do everywhere I go on social media, on LinkedIn, and networking events. I talk about the importance of mental health because I didn't have that for myself growing up.
Okay.
I didn't know if it was okay for me to talk about my feelings openly, right? So there is a huge stigma, growing up. And for me, that's the cultural conditioning that I had as a first gen. And for me, I'm kind of breaking that cycle with the way I raise my kids
Aw.
and the way I talk openly about it.
Well, I didn't know that, so thank you for sharing that overall. And it's like it is a big stigma on it, and it's
Yeah.
like the more I have conversations with people around mental health and awareness and all that, it's like I hear the common theme around it, that it wasn't really spoken about. It wasn't something that you can accept. You have to always show up as perfect outside,
Mhm.
you know? And what I've seen is like, it's not just one thing with different, it's not just locked into culture. It's actually just locked into everybody.
That's what,
Because
yeah.
I've seen it. Like
Mhm.
I've seen it with like, you know, in the Latino, Hispanic culture, the Filipino culture. Like it's in every
It's
culture.
everywhere. It's just a stigma.
Um,
It's a stigma in the society that has conditioned to us that it's not okay to not be okay. It's not
exactly.
okay. Like if you're talking to a therapist, there's something wrong with you. If you're
Yeah.
using that, if you're using any antidepressants, then you're crazy. You know, like no. What I've learned through my therapy is, therapy is a tool. They share practices that you can use in your everyday life to help self cope your emotions, to deregulate that too, right? So, and that's why I think it's really important to talk about that openly, because you just don't know, you don't know who's struggling out there, and for me, yes, and I've shared my experiences with my parents, and they now understand why it's important. Um, but yeah.
When did you realize that you needed to kind of step out of what the way your parents were teaching you about your emotions and
Yeah.
like and seeing like, you know what, like mom, dad, I understand this is the way that you want to be, but it's just not working for me. Like when did you take that step forward to start handling your mental health overall?
Yeah, honestly, it was when I knew what I needed, right?
Okay.
And I found out that, oh, it helped me talking help it helps it was a tool for me talking to someone about my feelings, right? And I remember even like I had my first therapy session like in high school, right? And that's when I finally had to come to the truth to my mom, like, hey mom, I know that, you said that would be okay and all that and everything, but I think I want to, it's just me raising my hand and asking for help. Like it's
Okay.
me taking that first step to saying that like I need help. I see that there's resources out there, mom. Like it was me like getting information and showing it to my mom, right? And then also it's just for me what kind of changed the shift is like I knew what worked for me and what worked for people in my community, and I'm all about just sharing that knowledge to my own family and friends and my own children, right? That you don't have to deal with anything alone, right? You don't have to struggle alone, right?
Hmm.
There's so many people out there that are experiencing that anxiety and depression, especially in this economy right now, right? So
Yes, yes. So I want to pivot a little bit, and because we got really like sentimental on that, and I want to pivot into your corporate life and your exit overall from corporate world. So you were at companies like Meta and Google, right? Which from the outside, we actually touched base with it with Vince last week. It's like it looks like, oh my god, it's a dream job. Like this is like where you want to be at. So I want to know, what was your reality, right? And then to add that in there, did your cultural background shape how you showed up within the environment?
I love that question. Okay. Woo! You are okay. How, what was my reality working at these companies that you're saying? Okay.
Exactly. Hmm.
Honestly, at the end of the day, I feel very fortunate to work at the companies I worked for. I interviewed multiple times for Meta. Meta was my dream company, right? And the the opportunity that I had to, work on the diversity team was just, for me, it was probably the highlight of my tech career,
Okay.
right? Because I got to help people from underrepresented communities, help them break into tech, right? Help advocate for them, right? People that came from non-traditional backgrounds, because I came from a non-traditional background, right? I just love the work that I was able to bring at Meta. And, it was really surreal for me to finally be in that environment. And for me, one of the best highlights of my career is bringing my parents to Meta, right? And showing them and then taking pictures, and they're like posting it on social media. I remember my dad, when we were having lunch in MPK, he was he was like FaceTiming his brother in the Philippines, like, look where I am, I'm on Facebook, just super proud moment, right? And then, the reality happened where, sometimes, things are going to change, right? The company changed, the mission changes. At the end of the day, I'm going to be forever grateful for my work there. Um, and for me, like once I kind of check that off my bucket list, right, as far as working at my dream company, I thought to myself, what's next for me? There's no other dream company that I want to work for, right? The reality was, the reality was, I found that once I checked it off my list, the next dream that I have is to build a career in business on my own, right? And that's what
Okay.
I'm doing right now with you. And then the other question was, how did I bring my like cultural identity to my work? I really honestly felt like at Meta and Facebook, that's where I really felt like I showed up authentically to myself. Because
Okay.
that's what really brought me to Facebook is, come as you are, you want to be your true authentic self. And for me, I feel like the moment I started at Meta, that's when, I brought, in our Filipino culture and community, we're known to be loud and extra, super animated, very passionate, just hella extra, right? And that's how I shoot. That's how I showed up every day at work. And that's when I really saw opportunities coming to me as far as working different projects, working for, I got the opportunity to implement different diversity hiring initiatives, as well as attending Afrotech to represent our team. So I felt like once I felt comfortable in my own cultural identity, that's when I really felt like I was making an impact in my day-to-day work. And that's why I show up the way I do in my business and coaching, right? Is because once you once you feel comfortable in your skin and your background, then that's where the magic happens, I feel like, because yeah. That's a long-winded answer, but
No, that's really good. So obviously, you've shared publicly that you were affected by one of the layoffs that took place within Meta. And my question is, what was what were you going through mentally, right? When you decided to be like, that's it, I'm not going back to the traditional corporate world and chase that dream that you had of like starting your own business. Like, can you walk me through that season of life that you were like,
ooh,
okay, I'm done. Like, I've done everything. Now I need to chase my own dream.
yeah. What's funny is I gotta say hi to Vincent. Vincent just made a comment here.
Oh,
They look down.
Vincent.
Yeah, that's true. It is being brave about but being brave. Um, thanks, Vince. I actually want to, and I told Vince this too. I don't know if I told you this before, but it was my therapist that inspired me to do this career move. So,
Okay.
you need to
Still
know
no,
what?
I
Okay.
didn't know this.
As you know, one of the great benefits that we have working at these great tech companies um, is therapy, the mental wellness benefits, right? And
Mhm.
I was fortunate to have that during my last year at Meta. And I remember when I was kind of going through the transition from, you know, walking away from Meta or getting laid off from Meta, I was still seeing my therapist. And I just really loved her work mentality because she would tell me that she worked for her dream company and she started experiencing burnout, and then she basically launched her own practice, and then she was working for different uh, institutions. And I told her, I said, I want to have what you have as far as having something for myself but also consulting on the side, right?
Okay.
And for me, I and this, I had an offer on the table for another recruiter role, but then for me, like even though I had that offer, I was trying to look for that dream role. Where
Okay.
can I do where can I be creative? Where I want to find a position where I could bring my passion of social media and creativity and content creation coupled with career coaching, consulting, all of that, right? but there is nothing out there. Like there is nothing out there. I've like literally applied to maybe over 50 to 100 roles, and I didn't see anything out there. So then I thought to myself, I'm going to do this on my own. Honestly, it was really, and I just talked to Michelle about this, my UGC coach. It was really enrolling in UGC Academy that was a launching pad to everything in my life right now, as far as building a portfolio career that I just love, right? I'm doing all the things that I love, from career coaching to content creation to podcasting, just to community building. I'm literally building the career that I've always wanted because I decided to say no to that offer, right? Because I wanted to see what is it going to look like for me when I take a bet on myself.
Which actually leads me to my next question. Oh. I love you. Remember this. I love you. So when you finally said, okay, I'm not going back, because you had this essentially really good paying job on the table for you. And how did people in your life, like I'm talking your parents, your husband,
that's a good question.
How did they react when you walked away from that kind of stability, right? Especially coming from a Filipino household and where security means everything. And then also it's like, so you have the Filipino background with that, with your parents, like, stability is everything, but then you also have a family. So, and with your husband, because you are a dual income family.
Yeah.
And then you're stepped away from that. Like, how did that affect or transpire once you made that decision? Like, what happened?
Yeah, I will say this. This is not the first time I've done this. My first layoff was in the pandemic, right?
I hear you.
Yeah, I think they both say the same track record. And that's when I started my coaching business. Also, the first time where I really walked away from my career was when I had Robbie, my son, in 2014. I took like a almost 2-year break to be a stay-at-home mom after working since I was 13. So it's not anything new, right? But I will say this, I feel like when it happened and I told my mom, and I said to her, "Hey mom, I'm going to do my own thing. I don't want to go back to corporate. I want to see where I can, see what happens if I really focus on my coaching business, and I really want to build a portfolio career where I get to kind of consult and coach and do content." She was like, "Okay, June, whatever you want, like as long as you're happy." But she kind of said it in a way where it's like, unsure. Like, "Are you sure?" And it's always gonna be, but at the end of the day, my mom's always going to be supportive. But I feel like it is that mentality where when they grew up, it's like you stick to traditions. It's tradition to like work a 9 to 5, right? I even got the same feedback for some of my friends and family, right? About when I enrolled in UGC Academy, I only told a one group of friends because I already know if I was going to tell my family, they're going to be like, "It's another new thing for you, June. Like, like what's this other gimmick that you're trying to do now?" But for some reason, like when I like the first couple of weeks in UGC Academy, I saw the vision. I saw, oh, this is what I need. It was kind of and you talked about this. It was the vehicle that I need to take my skills to the next level, right? And what I love about UGC, it kind of takes everything that I'm passionate about as far as like social media, content creation, strategic thinking, relationship building, community building, like all of that into like a vehicle. The drama. And like the hunt, right? The hunt, because when I started learning that I could utilize my recruiting skills to pitch myself to brands, that's what I was doing when I was recruiting for 10 years. I was pitching companies to candidates and vice versa. Now it's been interesting because I'm pitching myself, I feel like I love that I'm not starting over. I'm just talking about realigning and repositioning our skills, right? So it was really honestly UGC that kind of, I already had an idea that I didn't want to go back to corporate, but it was taking that first step and investing in myself into UGC Academy where I realized, oh, this is the vehicle that's going to help me create my business portfolio.
I love it. I love it. So now that you made that pivot, right? You're now building in public and you're using your voice. You also no longer have like this big corporate behind you, like corporate badass on there because you're now your own badass here. Facing it. I'm just gonna say because you do show up like we tend to have a really hard time as people in general. We don't like to toot our own horn too much, right? Because with culture, we're like, oh no, you can't be too loud. You can't be too this. So I'm going to toot it for you. So you're a badass. You're on there. Sorry, LinkedIn, if that's not allowed. But, what does it feel like for you who grew up being taught to stay in your lane, that now you're expanding out to and trying all these things that technically weren't for you because you were like a Filipino American first generation?
Yeah, there was no blueprint for me, right? There was no blueprint. There was no role models for me. And actually, Vince and I just hosted a workshop last week for a tech company called like how to turn basically how to find your leadership, right? Voice. From like invisible, it was invisible, finding your visible excellence, right? And for me, I feel like because there was no blueprint for me, because I didn't have any role models, I didn't know, right? But now that I've kind of paved my own way and I found my leadership voice through all of the experiences I have, it gives me more purpose and more motivation to show up the way that I do because I want my daughter to see that, right?
Okay. Yeah.
That's why I want my people in my community, not only the Filipino community, but women in general, women in general, especially in the BIPOC community, we need more representation. That's why I decided to not only enroll myself in UGC Academy too, and I talked about this too, is like, I didn't see a lot of Filipino creators.
Okay. Yeah.
Right? So I was like, I'm going to be that creator, right? And like, I didn't see a lot of LinkedIn creators that were Filipino, right? Posting and dancing on LinkedIn, right? Like that's what I did in the pandemic. So, yeah, it's giving me, and every time I stay true to myself, that's where I really see the opportunities come my way when I'm staying true to my culture and who I am and embracing it. And you don't know, like what really feels rewarding is getting messages from people saying like, oh, I saw you're a fellow Filipina. It's so good to see you on my feed. Like, I wish I could have the courage that you do to show up, you know? And like, for me, if I'm able to impact one person, like everything is worth it to me as far as like overcoming the fear to show up on video, right? Overcoming the fear and imposter syndrome to be on this podcast recording. I always feel like we've talked about this. I always feel a little nervous going on live,
I
but
know. Just FYI, people. So when it was my idea to throw June into the podcast and do the interview, I get a message. I wish I could share it because you'll probably kill me. I can't say the whole thing, but it'll be like, she's like, me? You want to interview me? And I'm like, hello, yes. So I actually did not allow June at all to help me with any of the questions.
I know, I saw the questions. I was like, oh my goodness.
I kind of I built it out and I was like, okay, June. And she's been asking, she's been like, hello, can I have it? And I actually locked the file down and we share it with whoever comes into our podcast. We share it to them usually about 35 days before, depending on the situation. And I shared it with her last night.
Yeah.
And the reason why I did it, it was strategically. The reason I shared it with her last night was because it didn't allow her to change it. No, it didn't allow you to change everything because you like to change things. You like to control everything. So to me,
way to call me out.
You're
the same way, fellow Leo. Oh my goodness.
Oh no, that's the thing. I did it because I am a Leo. I know the situation. So to me, it was like, I just want you to show up so authentic and just come in like you do all the time. But I kind of just wanted to wing it with you. We're like, hey, we got
I glanced at it, I had no, we've been really busy. And and that worked in your favor because I glanced at it, and then honestly, there are some questions that you asked. I was like, I don't remember you putting this on the question sheet. Like, I didn't know how deep we were gonna go, like how deep we were gonna go today. But no, I think
Love you.
it's no, it's very therapeutic, and these are conversations that are very important to have in the community because when it comes to mental health, you know, blending your cultural identity into the corporate world, right? I think it's important. So I'm glad that you had those questions for me today.
You're welcome. And you'll get your revenge on me with
Yeah, next month when I meet you in person.
when the tables are turned, you'll get it.
Yes.
And then so just to close it up, so I appreciate, first of all, like I appreciate that you going in deep and showcasing like your experiences about it, because like you said, it does take a lot of courage to show up and be like, oh, I have to be honest, because it does help a person. Like maybe it doesn't today, but when they hear the re-recording, they're like, oh my God, like thank you so much for showcasing, because that's how I feel.
Right.
Leads me to my last question. We asked this to everybody, is what does being stripped naked mean to you right now in this very season of your life? I stumped her. Wait, are you talking? I can't hear you. Oh no, you went MIA. See, it was so hot that the mic went down. No. Oh no, I can't hear you.
Can you hear me?
Oh yes, I can hear you now.
Sorry. Good. That was a Verizon commercial. Good. Can you hear me now? I was not ready for that question. What does strip naked mean for me today?
Yeah, like so right now in this season of your life.
I think for me, being stripped naked means it's okay to start all over. Like, honestly, I kind of had this conversation with Vince, like, are we repositioning or are we starting over, right? I feel like I'm in this new season where I have a different mindset in life for my family, for my career, my business. And being stripped naked to me is stripping all the fears and imposter syndromes and self-doubt away from me and away from my energy, so I could really step into the person that I've always been meant to be,
Oh, I like that.
like really just stripping away all that self-doubt and BS. Like I call my imposter Lindsay.
Okay.
Lindsay comes around whenever I try to do something brave, right? So I'm just like, you, Lindsay. Okay, I'm gonna do what I need to do, because I feel like honestly, once you strip away that fear and self-doubt and insecurities, that's when you could really step into your power, right? And for me, it takes a lot of bravery to do what we do, right? To step away from our corporate lives, to take a bet on ourselves, right? That's being stripped for me naked right now in this season, is just stripping away from the BS and your insecurities and stepping into who you've always been meant to be. And I feel like that's what we're doing right now. It's hard. It's hard, right?
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie. On Monday, I almost texted you this. It's like, maybe I should go back to corporate, because I was tracking my hours for my consulting role. But then I was like, no, I'm not. That's the easy way. That's the easy way, right? So we could always fall back. But for me, I feel like I've already invested so much into this new career of mine that there's no turning back.
Oh, I'm glad to hear that, because if you do send me that message, you know what I'm going to tell you. But thank you again so much for allowing me to ask you these questions and then going live and speaking about it, because it does take a lot of courage, and I want you to hear that it does take a lot of courage. It's different sitting on the opposite end of asking the questions versus the one asking them, and I know I'll learn eventually the feeling too. But thank you all for joining us today. I do have a couple of different things. It's like, if you can go and follow us on our Strip Naked podcast page inside of LinkedIn, because we would love to start streaming off of from there.
Yes.
Just to keep all of things organized. We also have our Spotify page is up and live. Vince's episode is already in there.
Yes.
So if you weren't able to catch it on LinkedIn Live and you are driving, you're like, hey, I would like to hear it. It's also on our Spotify, so you can give us a follow there. And of course, we have an Instagram page. Same thing, Strip Naked Podcast. So we would love to see you there in our DMs. And, if you do want to be in our podcast, shoot us a message, either June or I, and we will be more than happy to put you into the rotation. But again, thank you everybody for joining us today. Thank you, June, again, for letting me be real raw with you and get some really vulnerable answers out of you. And we will see you again next week on Wednesday. Bye, guys.
See you next time. Bye.